China just pulled the trigger on a resource war, and the United States is already counting the cost. With a sudden export ban on gallium, a rare but critical metal used in everything from military radar to semiconductors, Beijing has delivered a $603 billion, 0-cent blow to the U.S. economy. And while American firms scramble to find replacements, Huawei is quietly celebrating. The ban didn't just squeeze the West, it handed China's tech giant a monopoly edge in 5G, solar, and next-gen defense components. This wasn't just economic retaliation, it was a strategic strike. So the question now isn't if America can catch up, it's whether China just took control of the future of global tech. On July 1st, 2025, Beijing issued a bombshell directive. All exports of gallium and germanium, two rare tech-critical metals, are now subject to state review and restriction. The announcement came through China's Ministry of Commerce and hit global markets within minutes. But make no mistake, this wasn't just a bureaucratic move. It was a precision strike aimed directly at the United States. Gallium is a strategic metal, essential in the production of semiconductors, solar panels, 5G infrastructure, advanced radar systems, and even satellite communications. And China isn't just a major player, it's the world's dominant supplier, producing over 90% of the global gallium supply. The timing wasn't random. The ban came just weeks after new U.S. restrictions on high-end chip exports to China, part of Washington's ongoing effort to curb Beijing's technological rise. But this time, China hit back, and hit hard. Immediately after the announcement, tech stocks dipped, defense contractors panicked, and semiconductor firms began issuing internal warnings. The U.S. Department of Commerce called it a hostile move with dangerous implications for global stability. Behind the scenes, U.S. manufacturers, from chipmakers to aerospace firms, are scrambling to source gallium from alternative markets like Kazakhstan or Canada. But the truth is, there is no immediate substitute, not in volume, not in price, and not in purity. China hasn't just weaponized trade. It's weaponized materials the modern world can't function without. And the message is clear. If Washington wants to play hardball, Beijing will start pulling levers the West didn't even realize it controlled. Gallium isn't a household name, but it's embedded in nearly every high-tech system the U.S. depends on, both commercial and military. It's used to produce gallium arsenide, gas, and gallium nitride, GAs, materials essential for high-frequency, high-efficiency semiconductors. These chips power 5G base stations, satellite communications, missile guidance systems, and advanced radar. In other words, no gallium. No edge in modern warfare, telecom, or AI infrastructure. Companies like Intel, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, and Apple all rely on a stable supply of gallium compounds to maintain production. And while the U.S. has zero domestic gallium refining capacity, China refines and exports over 90% of the world's supply, making it a choke point in the global supply chain. Gallium's value isn't just in volume, it's in purity. China controls the most advanced refining processes, allowing it to produce gallium pure enough for military-grade electronics. Other producers, like Germany and South Korea, offer small-scale output but can't match China's efficiency, scalability, or cost structure. What makes this more dangerous is gallium's role in the next wave of technology. GaN semiconductors are now replacing traditional silicon in electric vehicles, aerospace components, and advanced weapons systems due to their ability to handle high power at higher efficiency. With its export ban, China has effectively tightened its grip on the future of energy, defense, and data transmission. For Beijing, gallium isn't just a resource, it's leverage. For Washington, it's a vulnerability now exposed. And unless the U.S. finds a way to build out its own supply chain fast, China's control over this one element could redefine the balance of global power. The gallium export ban isn't just a supply disruption, it's a $603 billion 0 cents economic shockwave. That's the estimated loss in market capitalization, delayed production, and canceled contracts across U.S. tech, defense, and energy sectors. According to a joint analysis by Bloomberg and the Semiconductor Industry Association. The biggest hit? Semiconductors. Companies like NVIDIA, AMD, and Broadcom, which rely heavily on gallium-based chips for AI and telecom infrastructure, have already seen projects halted or delayed. The sudden squeeze in supply has spiked gallium compound prices by over 340%, slashing profit margins and forcing urgent resourcing strategies that simply don't exist. Yet, defense contractors are next in line. Firms like Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, which use gallium nitride in missile systems, radar, and secure communications, are warning of bottlenecks that could stall weapons production for months. The Pentagon has reportedly launched an emergency sourcing program, but U.S. refining capabilities are years behind. Even clean energy and EV companies are exposed. Gallium is used in high-efficiency solar panels and onboard electric vehicle electronics. Without it, production slows, and Tesla, among others, is now assessing short-term fallout. The ripple effect doesn't stop there. As gallium shortages grow, investor confidence is sliding, tech indices are trembling, and foreign markets are reevaluating exposure to American tech. The damage is measurable, but the message is louder. America's high-tech empire runs on materials it doesn't control. In a single policy move, China exposed the weakest link in the U.S. innovation economy. And unless America finds a fix fast, the costs, economic, strategic, and geopolitical, may continue to climb. While U.S. firms were scrambling, Huawei made its move, and it couldn't have been more perfectly timed. With the gallium export ban choking off U.S. access to high-performance semiconductors, Huawei, already blacklisted by Washington, accelerated production of its GaN-based chipsets and 5G infrastructure, backed by the Chinese government and secure access to domestic gallium reserves. Huawei began offering low-cost, high-efficiency telecom solutions to Africa, Latin America, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia, markets previously dominated by U.S. and EU firms. The result? Huawei isn't just recovering from Western sanctions, it's thriving. Analysts now estimate Huawei has reclaimed over 35% of the global 5G equipment market, and its internal chip division is gaining momentum as Western rivals struggle with raw material shortages. Even more alarming, Huawei is now quietly building supply chain partnerships with BRICS nations, using gallium-backed trade deals to sideline U.S. competitors. This isn't just market recovery. It's monopoly building by design, enabled by a resource Washington can no longer access. And while U.S. firms look for workarounds, Huawei is doing something far more dangerous, seizing the future without resistance. China's gallium ban didn't just rattle the U.S. It sent shockwaves across global power centers. Within days, NATO allies held closed-door meetings to assess supply vulnerabilities. Germany and South Korea, both heavily dependent on Chinese gallium for chip production, issued emergency requests for exemptions. But Beijing remained silent. Meanwhile, BRICS nations saw opportunity. Russia and Brazil expressed open support for China's right to control critical resources, with Brazil proposing a BRICS-wide strategic minerals alliance. At the same time, India and South Africa began exploratory talks with Beijing about gallium trade corridors that exclude Western intermediaries. The global market didn't wait. Prices for gallium derivatives spiked across Singapore and London exchanges, while rare earths ETFs surged, signaling investors now recognize resource control as geopolitical power. This wasn't just an economic move, it was a signal. China is willing to weaponize materials. And the world is watching. Now nations are rethinking supply chains, trade agreements, and their long-term alignment in a world no longer defined by U.S. tech supremacy. And with BRICS preparing its own critical minerals framework, this may only be the beginning of a broader resource-based power shift, one with China firmly in command. This wasn't just a ban, it was a blueprint. With one stroke of policy, China exposed the hidden fragility of U.S. dominance. Not through missiles or military moves, but through minerals buried beneath its own soil. Gallium may be obscure, but its impact just rewired the global economy, tilted the tech race, and empowered Huawei to reclaim ground the West tried to erase. Washington is now scrambling, corporations are bleeding, and allies are panicking. The U.S., long believed to be untouchable in innovation, is suddenly at the mercy of a resource it doesn't control, and a rival that just proved it holds more than just ambition. And this is just one material. What happens when China makes similar moves with rare earths, graphite, or lithium? The world isn't just entering a trade war, it's entering a resource war, where those who control supply chains write the rules of the future. So here's the question. Is America prepared for a new kind of conflict? One where the battlefield isn't land or air, but cobalt, gallium, and control over who gets to build what next? Because China just fired the first shot, and it was quiet, calculated, and devastating.